Quadratic equations by factoring. This method will always work. We'll do a few examples. The steps are, to do this, step 1 is break the middle term into 2 with a diamond problem. Here's the steps. Step 1, break middle term into 2 with a diamond problem. That's step 1. Step 2 is factor out the greatest common factor 3 times. I'll show you what I mean. Factor out GCF 3 times, and the last step is use the zero product property. Use the zero product property. So let's look at some examples. We'll start with this. Example 1 is solve. So we're solving. The directions are solve for x. 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. I want to solve for x. Notice it always has to be equal to 0 to do this. Otherwise, the zero product property won't even work. So if it's not equal to 0, get it equal to 0. So what you do is you rewrite. The first term stays the same, the last term stays the same. Nothing's changing, and we need to break the 5x into 2 things that add to 5. So you do a diamond problem. This middle term goes on the bottom because we want 2 things that add to 5x. We want to rewrite it into 2 things that add to 5x. So that goes on the bottom. On the top, you multiply the first and the last terms together, like you're used to. There's nothing different. You're already used to doing this if you use diamonds at all. So 2x squared times negative 3 is negative 6x squared. So that goes on top. That's probably the hardest part. So now, when you figure out what goes in these 2 boxes, did anyone figure it out yet? You have to multiply to negative 6. 6 and 1, right? But it has to be positive 6 and negative 1x. Yeah. And if the diamond things are still hard for you, I can go through how you can do an ordered list to get the answers. You can list all the things that multiply to 6 and then try all the different signs. So maybe I'll just do it right here. If you're having a hard time with diamonds, list all the things that multiply to 6. So you know it's 1 times 6, or what else? 2 times 3. It's one of those. You know it has to be one of those, and then you can do all the different combinations of minus plus, plus minus, minus plus, plus minus, and that's all of them until you find the right answer. So just list everything. Alright, so breaking it into 2, then this becomes plus 6x minus 1x. So how many terms do we have now? Instead of 3, we have 4. And now if you just factor out the GCF 3 times, you'll have the answer. There's no more guessing. There's no more guesswork. It's all pretty much done. And the reason I like this is because in the future you're going to be asked to factor with 4 terms, and you'll already know how to do it. So let's just do it. So step 2 is to factor out the GCF 3 times. So you group these 2, and you group these 2. So what is the greatest common factor between 2x squared and 6x? 2x, yeah. 2 is the biggest number that multiplies into both. So 2x. And so what goes in here to do the opposite of the distributive property? x plus 3, right? So that's an easier problem to do. You're just factoring with those two terms. And now we're going to just factor with these two terms. What's in common with these is -1. It doesn't look like there's anything, but you have to factor out something, and if there's a negative, you want to take that out. So take out the -1, and that just changes the sign on both of these, so it's positive x plus 3. And the other advantage to this is if you did it right, this will always equal that. They will be the same every single time, no matter how you've gotten there. And so the final answer is what I've underlined, you factor it out. That's the third time. Factor out that common thing that I've underlined, and then what's left over is 2x minus 1. And now it's factored. So the 2x minus 1, it's like you're factoring out this whole thing, x plus 3, and what's left over is 2x minus 1. This process will always work if you do it every time. And now I'm going to do the zero product property. So you have to set each term equal to 0 and solve. So either x is -3 or x is 1/2, because you would add 1 and divide by 2. So there's one example. I'm going to do another example. So add that to your notes as well. Example 2. Can I answer any questions about that so far? We're going to do it one more time. So we'll have 2 examples. So number 2, let's say we have 3x squared plus 10x minus 8 equals 0. Solve for x. Okay, step number 1 is to break this 10x into 2 different terms. So we leave the 3x squared and the minus 8 alone. And I want to know what 2 things add to 10x. So that goes on the bottom, of course, because what we add to goes on the bottom. This is the same as always for diamond problems. What adds to 10x? And then you multiply the first and the last term to get what goes up here. So it's -24x squared. So what multiplies to -24 and adds to 10? -6. We kind of got to use 12 and 2, right? Because they have to add to 10. They have to be 10 away from each other. So I know it's 12 and 2. And positive 12 and -2. Yeah. And if I weren't sure, I would list 1 times 20. I would start with 1 times the number. That's 1 times 24. And then I would go up from there. 2 times 12. And then 3 times, does 3 go into 24? Yes, 3 times 8. 4 times 6. And there's no other there's also 12 times 2. So I would write out everything that multiplies to, well, we already repeated. That started to repeat. We already have that one. So you just list in order everything that multiplies to 24 and try each choice, so that you don't have to just go in circles guessing for your diamond problems. Okay, so the 12x and the minus 2x go there, and now we just have to factor out the GCF 3 times and we're done. So what about those two? What's the greatest common factor? 3x. And what's left over opposite of the distributive property? Good. And what's in common between these two? -2. Awesome. I think you're getting this. And what goes in here? Yeah, if you're not sure, look at what you got last time, because it's got to be the same. X plus 4. You can try it. Distribute and make sure you get this back. -2 times x, -2 times 4. Now, this thing that's in common, that's what you take out. You can factor out a whole binomial like that. And then the 3x minus 2 is left, and there's your factored answer. 3x minus 2 goes there. X plus 4 comes from these. And so I use the zero product property. Set each one equal to 0. So x is -4, And then you actually have to do some more steps to solve that one in 2/3. Just set each term equal to 0 and solve.